I always love to start the show with the 5 things that you need to know to start your day. And let's start this day with the stimulus and the government shutdown. We've got some major news on the government shutdown front that I want to get to first, and then we will talk about the stimulus. So lawmakers right now, this afternoon, could be unveiling a compromised bipartisan spending bill to avert a government shutdown. Imagine that. They're able to come together and get something done. That is shocking. They're able to come together and get something done on the stimulus, on the government shutdown front. So here's what it would look like. They're not talking about the stimulus. We'll get to that in a second. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin came together earlier this month to pass that short-term spending bill, which would expire on October 1st. Now they need to finish up these discussions today in order to try to get this spending bill through the end of the year, or at least through the duration into 2021, January, February, etc. They don't want these talks to end in a derail over its end date, so they said they could be flexible on that ending date. They don't want that to be the thing that throws everything off. The bill is expected to be introduced in the House of Representatives today, but it will have bipartisan agreements from both sides, and it would likely then pass the Senate. See, it's amazing. When they want to come to some sort of agreement on something, they can, and they can do it pretty quickly. And still, we're miles apart on this stimulus. Larry Kudlow, the director of President's Economic Council, said also that he would be open to an additional aid package for the stimulus. So here's Larry Kudlow. I just want you to hear Larry Kudlow talking about this. He was at the Economic Club of New York yesterday, where he said, I would say that it's in the range of plausibility that we would get to a $1.5 trillion package, he said yesterday during this interview. But he then went on the news, and he just sounds like, I don't know how to describe it. Maybe you can come up with the word. The word I'm thinking is like condescending. He's a Wall Street guy, right? He was an anchor on CNBC covering Wall Street and all those guys. He cares about Wall Street. He cares about big business. Okay, that's his world. And when he's talking yesterday with a camera in his face, he sounds like condescending. Like, that group of people over there that's hurting, that group. Yeah, maybe we'll figure something out. Even Grover can't stand it. Listen to Larry Kudlow yesterday on this stimulus plan and where things stand right now. If I can find that little sound bite, I will bring it to you. Oh, here it is. No, there it is. Here it is. Thank you, Grover.
The president's proposed a major payroll tax deferral, which is very important. That's not only an incentive for people who've been working through this pandemic, 147 million some odd people, but also an incentive to go back to work, to get essentially, an 11% pay raise. That's an after-tax wage increase, which is great stuff. And we think we're going to protect them in this fashion. We'll see how the stimulus talks go. We'd like to renew the business loans, the small business loans. I think there's a lot of talk about that. Some money for school openings. I think that's very, very important. And the main thing right now is not only is the virus numbers coming down, but the economy is producing tremendous numbers across the board. It's a self-sustaining V-shaped recovery.
Really? It's a self-sustaining recovery. It's a V-shaped recovery. That's like the biggest pile of garbage I've heard in a while. And I've got a lot of garbage in today's show, but that's a big one. It's a V-shaped recovery for who? This thing, if you watch my show any length of time, you know that I think that this thing is a K-shaped recovery because the data says it is. You know how I feel on this show. I don't throw a lot of my emotion without fact on this show. The data shows us that Wall Street is doing fine, that businesses are fine, that the American people are not fine, low-income families are not fine, there's permanent job loss in this country, that's not fine. I just like the condescension in his voice. Like when he says, that group of people, whatever you call them, like, listen to this again. I just can't take this.
It's very important. That's not only an incentive for people who've been working through this pandemic, 147 million some odd people. But
yeah, some 100 million odd people, just 100 million, that group, those schlebs that work for other people. What about all the people that haven't gotten jobs? What about all the people with a permanent job loss in this country? And he's not talking about that. And he's like, this economy is great. I'm talking to all my Wall Street buddies. It's fantastic. V-shaped recovery, my butt. This thing is a K-shaped recovery, and all the data shows us. In fact, I'll be showing you a story a little bit later in the show as we deep dive the housing crisis today and what that data looks like. Tell that to the person who's about to lose their home, that this is a V-shaped recovery and we're bouncing back, baby. We're doing great. Aren't we, Grover?
Come on, man.
Exactly, Joe. Come on, man. Really? Nevertheless, there are some positive signs on the part of Democrats, because now they sort of get to sit back and watch as President Trump has opened up the door and put the pressure on Republicans now to pass a stimulus plan. And Grover is fired up today and totally agrees with this. But here are what Republicans are saying to President Trump now. Now, President Trump the other day, if you paid any attention to this during his press conference, said that he would support a bill in the range of what the Problem Solvers Caucus supported, which was that $1.5 trillion plan. That framework that both Republicans and Democrats, 50 of them, 50 members of that Problem Solvers Caucus came together and passed this new framework. Republicans have said in the Senate there's no way that this is going to fly. Democrats said, well, yeah, we're not really supportive of it terribly much. Nancy Pelosi kind of poured cold water on it because it's not as large as they would like it to be. But President Trump may have opened up the door for these negotiations during his press conference when he said that he would support this and that he wants a higher number than what Republicans want in the Senate. And that was a shot across the bow. Well, that did not sit well with some Republicans. Republicans in the Senate who are running for re-election right now don't like to be chastised by the President of the United States, certainly during an election year. Well, that's exactly what happened. Chuck Grassley was not happy about it. This is Republican Senator Chuck Grassley, who warned the president. I mean, he basically flat out warned him and said, he better be careful.
What are the chances of getting fiscal stimulus before the election? From 1 to 100, what do you put it at?
0, unless Pelosi decides she needs something. She's going to have to sit down with the White House, but the White House has been making some statements here recently that would never get hardly any Republicans in the House, in the United States Senate. So this used to be the White House versus Pelosi up until about now. Now the president's coming in and saying we can maybe go to $1.5 trillion. He better be careful of that, because I don't think that bill could get through the United States Senate.
Come on, man.
He better be careful. I don't think that bill's getting through the United States Senate. And he's right. I don't see a snowball's chance in hell that it's going to pass the Senate. With Republicans, I mean, you have Senator John Thune. Some of you yesterday asked me, said, could we get a list of the 20 or so Republicans that would not vote for it? I mean, they have not come on. We don't know yet because there hasn't been a vote, so we don't have them on the record as to who exactly they are. But we have a pretty good idea of a good handful of them. Chuck Grassley being one of them. Ted Cruz being another. Senator John Thune, yet another. Lindsey Graham being another. So there's a good Rand Paul. There's another one that won't vote for any kind of a stimulus plan in the Senate. That's more than that $650 billion. There's no appetite for it. They do not want to spend this much money. They don't want to spend this money to help people. They're more concerned with helping Wall Street. Again, this big corporate Wall Street package that passed a few months ago, the CARES Act, was a boondoggle. Billions of dollars went to companies that didn't need it. It was a big windfall for all those friends of Washington, D.C. politicians. That's all it was. But we did have good stimulus checks in there that actually kept people out of poverty. And now that all of that's dried up, here we go, folks. Buckle your seatbelts, because it's coming. Meanwhile, members of the House are not happy with Nancy Pelosi on this. Here's the front page of the Politico this morning. Pelosi faces growing Democratic unrest over COVID relief. So what's happening here is that some of her Democratic members they got on a fiery phone call the other day after this bill, this framework rolled out. Basically, they're calling on her to pass a narrower deal. The proposal, she has this pushback. There's a number of people that said, look, we've got to pass something. I'm going to go back to my district on October 9th when we have this recess, and I'm going to be going into town hall meetings. I'm going to be going to Rotary Club meetings. I'm going to be campaigning for re-election. And when my constituents say, hey, why haven't you passed any kind of legislation? I'm not going to have anything to point to. I won't have anything to point to. And the response basically from House leadership is, yes, tell them that you passed the HEROES Act back in May, and Republicans are sitting on it. Which is true, but that was 3 months ago. It's one of those things like, that's great, but what have you done for me lately? That's exactly what this is. And, I don't know how that's going to sit when some of these House Democrats go back for their break and start campaigning again. What will they say? And what will voters say to them? It'll be interesting to see. Nancy Pelosi, for her part, I think she's playing this political game right now, and I think she's probably right in the politics of this. I think that what she's doing is she's banking on the fact that most voters will blame President Trump for this lack of stimulus, lack of leadership on this, and I think she's probably right, because he has shown a lack of leadership all summer long, and American people know that. He could have, now he's getting up at the podium the other day and only answering a reporter's question. He didn't even bring it up as part of his press conference. It was because John Roberts from Fox News asked him the question about COVID relief that he said, yeah, I would support that. If he really cared and he really wanted to get something done, the president would be out there at the podium every day saying, let's get this done, let's get this done. No one's taking a vacation, we're going to get this done. He has not done that. He's deferred to Mitch McConnell, who pressed a pause on this entire process. So I think Nancy Pelosi is probably accurate in this. She's playing a dangerous game, though. She's banking on the fact that most voters will think that President Trump failed in his leadership to pass an additional stimulus package. But let me know in the chat what you think. Do you think that, who's to blame here on this? Is it Republicans, Democrats, both? Who's sitting on this bill right now? Who doesn't want to put money on the table? I know exactly who I point the finger at in the Senate. Let me know in the chat what you think. And don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Today is our members only chat day, and you can become a channel member very simply just by going to morninginvest.com/join. We do this every Friday where we have a members only chat. It's my way of saying thank you to all of you who support the channel and support independent journalism. So thank you for that.